The Winchester rifle felt cold in Marianne's hands, as heavy footsteps echoed from the wooden porch. 2 men, maybe 3. She pressed her back against the wall, breathing in the lingering scent of pine resin and old smoke in the small cabin. The white lace wedding dress still hanging on the wall, the only relic of her late sister, stirred gently in the breeze, seeping through the cracks in the door, like a ghost still haunting this place. "Ma'am, do not be afraid," a man's voice drawled, honey-sweet. "We just want to talk." Outside, dusk was falling over the Wyoming plains, the darkness thick as ink. Somewhere in that gathering night, Jack Donovan was riding home from the cattle range, unaware that back at his cabin, the past and the present were about to collide. For 10 years, Jack had lived quietly among the snow and wind, faithful to the memory of Lydia, the wife he lost in a storm. He had sworn never to love again. But 3 weeks ago, Lydia's younger sister had appeared amber eyes and a voice that carried danger in every syllable. Now, those same eyes stared down the trembling barrel of the gun, while outside, the sound of horses drew nearer. The door was about to burst open. Would Jack make it back in time to save her? Or would both of them be swallowed by a love that was never meant to be? Leave a comment to tell me where you are reading from around the world, and hit like if you are ready for a story where love and pain ride together beneath the wild skies of America. Letters from Denver kept arriving every month, addressed to Lydia's poor husband. Her family had never accepted that their daughter had married a cowboy. Jack never bothered to read them. He threw them into the fire and watched the words turn to ash. Until one day, a different letter made him pause. Marianne is in trouble. She ran away from her wedding to Henry Whitmore, the son of Denver's richest banker. She keeps talking about the peace Lydia once found in Wyoming. If she comes to you, please do not turn her away. She has nowhere else to go. Agnes Reed. He burned that letter too, but the words refused to burn inside his mind. When the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, Jack returned from repairing fences and saw a golden glow through the cabin window, the first light in that house in 10 years. She was sitting at Lydia's kitchen table, reading an old journal. Blonde hair, slender figure, and the tilt of her head as she read made his heart stumble, for where Lydia had been calm waters, Marianne was fire. "You are Marianne Reed," he said quietly. "The door was not locked," she replied, her voice trembling. "I am sorry for letting myself in. No one locks doors out here," he muttered, suddenly embarrassed by the smell of whiskey and trail dust on his coat. "Your family is looking for you," he said. "My family sold me for a gold mine contract," she answered with a bitter smile. "I would rather be buried in snow here than live in a golden cage in Denver." Outside, the wind hissed through the pines. "A storm is coming," Jack said softly. "I know," she closed the journal. "My sister once wrote that a Wyoming blizzard can kill you or save you depending on how brave you are." He looked at her for a long time. In those eyes, he saw the ghost of the woman he had lost, and something new, something dangerous, that made his heart forget how to sleep. Marianne did not know how to cook. She burned the eggs, overcooked the beans, and nearly set the stove on fire trying to light it with leftover oil. "You are a real city lady," Jack said, shaking his head, but he still helped her scrape the burnt pot clean. "I can learn," she shot back, defiant. She was wearing Lydia's old apron, hair messy, cheeks flushed. The sight made Jack's chest ache, as if someone had touched a scar that had never healed. "Lydia learned like this too, did she not?" "No," he said softly. "She was different." He could not explain that Lydia had been gentle rain, while Marianne was sudden lightning. One brought peace, the other made him feel alive again. One morning, he found her struggling in the barn, her pale hands trying to milk an old cow. Jack stepped behind her, his rough, warm hands guiding hers. "Like this," he said, easing her grip. When the first stream of milk splashed into the bucket, she gasped, "I did it." He laughed, and for a moment the wind and 10 years of loneliness disappeared. 3 days later, the blizzard struck. The sky turned white, the wind howled like lost souls. Half the herd vanished. "I have to go out," Jack said, pulling on his sheepskin coat. "Are you crazy? You will die. That herd is all I have." Marianne threw on Lydia's fur cloak, eyes steady. "Then I am coming with you." "No way." "Oh, you need someone to hold the lantern, and I need to prove I belong here." They rode into the storm, the wind cutting their faces raw. When they finally found the herd, both were trembling with cold. Jack built a fire, poured coffee, mixed with a little whiskey. She sat wrapped in a blanket, lips purple. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not leaving me out there." The firelight flickered across her face, no longer Lydia's shadow, but her own, stubborn, brave, fiercely beautiful. "Is this what belonging feels like?" she asked. Jack looked out the window, where snow still fell endlessly. Maybe, but Lydia never had to fight to find it. Marianne smiled faintly. "Then I will fight for what she was simply given." That night, Jack lay on his cold bed, listening to the wind whistle through the roof and her steady breathing from the next room. For the first time in 10 years, he did not feel empty. But when he heard her softly crying in the dark, all he could do was clench his fists. Some battles, he knew, must be fought alone. On Tuesday, while Jack was in town buying bullets and salt, Marianne saw 2 men on horseback riding into the yard. From the first moment, she knew they meant trouble. The way they looked around, grinning it, was the look of wolves catching the scent of prey. "We just want some water for the horses, miss," one of them called out, voice sweet and rotten. Marianne stayed silent, stepping back and reaching for the Winchester on the shelf. Her hands trembled as she loaded it 5 bullets. She had never fired a gun before. The knocking turned into splintering wood. The door burst open, and the 2 men stormed in, one tall, one short, both reeking of gunpowder and cheap liquor. "Now that is more like it," the tall one grinned, eyes sliding over her. "You all alone out here?" "He is gone," she said, voice calmer than her fear. "Well, that is mighty fine," he laughed, showing yellowed teeth. The scarred one chuckled low. "You even know how to use that thing, little bird?" Marianne lifted the rifle, aiming straight. "I know enough." "No, you do not," he growled, lunging forward. The shot cracked loud and sharp. The bullet struck the wooden post beside his head. Both froze. "The next one goes in your chest," she said, working the lever with shaking hands. The tall man smirked. "You got 4 left. Think you can hit us both?" They spread out. Her heart pounded. Sweat ran cold down her neck. "Easy now," the scarred man said, inching closer. "No one has to get hurt, sweetheart. We just want company." She pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through his shoulder. He screamed and fell against the wall. "You filthy whore!" the scarred man roared, pulling his gun. Marianne tried to lift the Winchester again, but her arms were weak. She knew she would not be fast enough. The door flew open. Jack Donovan stepped in through the snowstorm, like the storm itself, Colt revolver raised. "Drop it." 2 words, low and thunderous. The scarred man hesitated. The gunshot came. His weapon flew from his hand, along with 2 fingers. He screamed, blood spraying across the floor. "Get off my land," Jack growled. "Before I change my mind." The 2 stumbled out, leaving a trail of blood on the wooden floor. When silence returned, Marianne still stood there, gripping the Winchester. "Marianne," Jack said softly, moving toward her as if calming a frightened horse. "It is over. You are safe now." She looked at him and collapsed. He caught her, holding her against his chest. His heartbeat pounded against her ear. "You did well," he whispered. "Lydia's gun found the right hands after all." She looked up, her breath mingling with his. Their eyes met, and the world went utterly still. "Jack!" Her voice trembled like a prayer, pleading, afraid, and full of something deeper. Trust. For 10 years, Jack had lived with Lydia's ghost, swearing never to love again. But now, with Marianne in his arms, her warm breath brushing his neck, he knew that wall was crumbling. He kissed her. At first, a question. Then deeper, fiercer, all those years of loneliness pouring into one moment. She answered, clutching his shirt as if the world might disappear if she let go. They forgot the snow outside, forgot Lydia's name still hanging in the air of that cabin. When his hand slid along her shoulder and the fabric slipped down, her skin glowed pale under the lamplight. She was real. She was too close. But then his eyes caught the photo above the fireplace. Lydia smiling, gentle and eternal. A cold wind pierced through his chest. He stepped back, breathing hard. "No, I cannot." "Jack?" Marianne's voice broke. "Why?" "Because this is still her home. And I made a promise." She nodded, tears shimmering in the firelight. "I am such a fool. I can never win against a ghost." She turned away, the hem of her dress whispering across the wooden floor, then vanished behind her bedroom door. The quiet click of the lock sounded like thunder in Jack's chest. He stood alone in the kitchen, filled with smoke and regret. Lydia's picture still smiled down at him. Some promises are made to be kept, but what happens when the heart wants to break them? The next morning, Jack came down to the kitchen and found a note beside a cold cup of coffee. "Thank you for showing me what Lydia once found here. I am sorry I could not be her. The train leaves Cheyenne at noon." He did not need to read it twice. Marianne was gone. The hearth was ashes. The wind moaned through the door. The cabin was silent again, but this time it was not peace. It was emptiness. He should let her go. He should be grateful she left before they both burned in their own guilt. But when he looked out the window where the snow had melted and the sun was breaking through, he knew he could not stand losing her like Lydia. Jack pulled on his coat, mounted his horse, and rode. 37 miles, which is about 60 kilometers, across the frozen plains, the longest ride of his life. The horse's breath mingled with the wind, each heartbeat urging him faster. When the train whistle cut through the fog, he saw the Cheyenne station appear small and lonely in the wide land. And there was Marianne, slender in her travel cloak, holding a worn suitcase. She turned as his footsteps approached. Her face appeared through the steam surprised, then soft. "You came," she said, barely above a whisper. "The train to Denver, Chicago, and New York, all aboard," the conductor called. Jack stepped closer, just a few feet away. He held out his hand. "Come home with me, Marianne." She looked at his hand, then at the train hissing white smoke, the long cry splitting the world in two past on one side, future on the other. Her gaze met his, and in that instant, every reason disappeared. She placed her hand in his. The train pulled away, carrying others toward predictable lives. But they, two imperfect souls, stood in the mist, fingers entwined. Marianne smiled, not Lydia's soft smile, but her own, free, honest, filled with hope. "Now I understand," she said. "I was never running away. I was finding my way home." They walked toward the waiting horse, leaving behind the fading echo of the train's whistle. Over the Wyoming sky, the clouds drifted apart, revealing a new morning where every wound could heal, if the heart was brave enough to believe in a second chance. This story makes me think about the power of forgiveness, not just toward others, but toward ourselves. The past always leaves scars, but sometimes those scars remind us that we are still alive. I love how Jack learned to let go, and how Marianne chose to stay, not out of pity, but out of true love. Beneath that wild sky, they did not just find each other, they found themselves again. If this story touched your heart, hit like and share. There are many more tales waiting for you out on the untamed frontier of America.